All right. We want to thank you all today for joining us for our employment roundtable event, Exploring Careers in Disability Advocacy. My name is Jeremy Demick. I'm an advocate here at Disability Rights New York. I'm wearing a black suit with a gray shirt and a blue and black tie. And I'm a white guy in my 40s with glasses and blue eyes and blonde hair that you'll find a good amount of gray in. This event will be recorded. ASL and closed captions will be available throughout the event. Our moderator today is Jessica Richwalder. Our four panelists are Catherine Haldeman, Virginia Anderson, Carla Perez, and Seamus Cunningham. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation, and you can leave those questions or write those questions into the chat. We'll try to answer some of the questions in close to real time, and then some of the questions we'll save for a Q&A session at the end. Q&A will start at about 2:30, and if we get a lot of questions, we might start that question and answer portion of this presentation a little bit early. So without further ado, I'll pass this over to Jessica.
Thanks, Jeremy. And again, welcome everyone, and thank you for being here today. As Jeremy mentioned, my name is Jessica Richwalder. I am a senior staff attorney at Disability Rights New York. I am a white woman in my mid-30s with my hair pulled back. I'm wearing glasses, a tan sweater, and a dark colored blazer. And I will be the moderator today, working with our excellent panelists and asking them some not so necessarily hard-hitting questions, but really interesting ones that we're excited to share the answers with you. So we'll jump right in, and I will go to Catherine first and ask that you please introduce yourself, share with our audience what your job title is here at Disability Rights New York, and a little bit about some of the work that you do with us.
Great, thank you, Jessica, and hi, everybody. My name is Catherine Haldeman. I am a white woman with long brown hair, and I'm wearing light pink, but it looks a little bit more like white shirt today, and I have a blue necklace on. I am in my late 40s, and I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for Disability Rights New York. And if you see the backgrounds on Virginia and Seamus and Carla's squares, those are some of the things that we do. Like, we just rolled out a new logo. We take care of the branding for DRNY, as well as social media and our website, and all around putting the word out about DRNY. So that's just a little bit about me. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Catherine. Carla, same question. What your job title is, a little bit about you and some of the work that you do here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carla Perez, and I am a staff attorney with DRNY. I am part of the PAD program. I am a medium skin tone woman with long black hair, which you probably can't see because of the background. I am wearing a black top and a gray blazer. I help advocate for individuals that have developmental or intellectual disabilities in the PAD program, and I have been here for almost 8 months.
Thank you. We'll jump over to Virginia now.
Hi, my name is Virginia Anderson. I'm a early 40s. I'm a white woman. I have my hair pulled back into a bun that is brown. I'm wearing a blue top. I work in the intake department. Here at DRNY, I handle incoming calls, create case files to either be assisted by the intake department or transferred over to one of our several programs for assistance.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Seamus.
Hi, everyone. I'm Seamus. I'm a white male, brown hair, white shirt, gray jacket, gray and blue tie. I'm with the Representative Payee Program at Disability Rights New York, where we basically travel around the state to review people who are represented payees, make sure they're caring for their beneficiaries well. And I was here for about going on 4 years next year. So.
Thank you. So we're going to talk first a little bit about how folks ended up here and what they were involved in, either working or volunteering or school-wise before they came to Disability Rights New York and started working in this field. So we'll start with Carla this time. At the end of high school, the beginning of college, what careers would you say you were considering at that time and why?
So at that time, I knew I wanted to go into human services or not-for-profit. That has always been my passion. When I was an undergrad, I majored in child and family studies. I minored in forensic science and psychology. And prior to going to law school, I started working with disability advocacy at the Arc of Monroe. I was a community habilitator. And I helped individuals live independent life. I would help them with their goals. I would do fun things with them, take them out shopping, which is like my favorite thing to do, take them out for coffee. And that is when I first began working in disability advocacy. But I always knew that I wanted to do this kind of work.
Great, thank you. And Seamus, same question. End of high school, early college, what were you considering doing and why?
Well, I was considering a few different things. One idea I had was to try to get into West Point. Another idea was working at NASA or another area in the field such as that one. However, part of my high school was a requirement to volunteer 70 hours in the community. And my two older sisters went to the Center for Disability Services Langan School. So I thought of volunteering in the life skills department. And that's when my path forward changed, because I realized the answer is probably special education. So I decided to go to St. Rose to pursue an education degree.
Thank you. And Katrin, if you can share with our audience what you were doing at the end of high school, beginning of college, what you were considering doing professionally at that time?
Yeah, so I have a non-traditional background. I was a young mom at the end of high school, and I didn't do my undergrad until I was 30 and had an additional 2 children. So, however, my first, I guess I want to say real job, my first job outside of being in food service was I worked for the district attorney's office in my hometown, and I started out just doing really more like assistant work with the DA, and then I moved into more of a communications role, and I was there until I did my undergrad in communications, and we didn't really talk about the number of careers that there could be with communications, because at that point it was really more PR and like straight up marketing. The internet had not yet taken off. I graduated in 2008 when Facebook was just starting on the scene. So the advent of social media really changed the entire field of communications in a way that I think people who had started out before that, we had a very steep learning curve on how to start to utilize it for marketing. And after I did that, I ended up creating a brand of my own. That was how I really started moving more fully into marketing with social media and the internet. And so within my family system, I have one cousin who actually is in one of the pictures of an event that DRNY participated in before I got there at the ARC, and and another cousin who also is a resident at ARC. So when I interviewed at DRNY, I felt like this was the next logical step for me, that I wanted to be able to use what I had learned and through communications and marketing to really put this message out of the work that's being done, because it's just so great. So as opposed to being someone who is hands-on doing advocacy, really creating the messaging around it was something that I knew I wanted to do.
Thank you. And Virginia, if you would share with us where you were at the end of high school, beginning of college, and what you were considering at that point for
Okay, when I graduated high school, a friend got me a job at a local summer camp for individuals with disabilities, and I worked there for 4 summers. I fell in love with it. I went to get my associate's degree in early education, and then I went to work at a local nonprofit school in their preschool daycare for at-risk families. I did that for several years, and then I continued to work for our local nonprofit in their night rec program for individuals with disabilities. And I found an opportunity to work full-time for them as a job coach, where I assisted individuals with disabilities finding employment. And I loved doing that for quite a few years, but I saw there was a bigger need. And I found this opportunity at DRNY to assist at a different level with people who feel they're being discriminated against. And it was really just a great opportunity, and it fit in with what I was looking to do.
Great, thank you. And so several of you have mentioned kind of first jobs and things that really introduced you to the nonprofit world or specifically to disability advocacy work. Does anyone, so this is an open question to any of our panelists, have anything to say or want to say a little bit more about how you found that job or volunteer opportunity? Was it on a job board online? I think Virginia, you mentioned you found it through a friend. Just some different ways we can maybe share with our audience on how you found those opportunities.
I'll say, like I said, it was a friend who introduced me to the summer camp program, and then I networked a lot with other counselors who had been working for the agency about other opportunities, which led me to the part-time evening job at the night rec, because the manager of the summer program also ran the evening night rec program, and they were looking for people to assist with that program. So it was just kind of just slid right into that when summer camp ended, and I kept my connections there. And they showed me opportunities with the supportive employment program when they had hirings.
Thanks. And just as a little bit of a follow-up, you mentioned networking. And I know that when I was in high school and undergrad, networking sounded like kind of a scary word to me, a very formal thing. But now that I'm in a more professional setting, I've learned that it doesn't have to be so formal. Can you talk a little bit about what that networking looked like for you?
Absolutely. It was just very simple conversations with other counselors asking, okay, well, summer camp's over. What kind of things are you guys doing for work when it's the school year, September through June? And then they talked to me about the summer camp program and explained a little bit about it and said, well, actually, the director of the summer camp is running the night rec program. Why don't you go speak to him? And I spoke with him. And, he explained about the program and hired me. And then when I would go in evenings to do the paperwork and handle the runs and things like that to take individuals out, I would run into some of the job coaches because they were coming in and out of the building. We would just have casual conversations, and they told me about, when there are openings in the employment department.
Thank you. Do any of the other panelists want to talk about kind of how they found their first opportunities or even networking and your experiences with that? And it's okay if not. All right. So I also wanted to ask people to share any people, parents, friends, teachers, or mentors that might have influenced your choices that you made in college or your college majors or careers, and kind of what those conversations with those folks sounded like that might have led you in the direction that you ended up going. And we'll start with Seamus this time.
Yeah, so I think it was my sisters, 2 older sisters, that introduced me to the field, really, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have known about the Center for Disability Services, and I wouldn't have volunteered and thought of going into special education. So I really feel that, having them in my life basically put me on the trajectory to where I wanted to go at the time, which was teaching.
Thank you. And Carla, was there anyone particular in your life who mentored or influenced you in the direction that you decided to go?
Yes, for sure. So my mother is Puerto Rican and her primary language is Spanish. And so I've considered myself an advocate since I was a little girl. I would help interpret for her, for example, in medical appointments, or if we would receive mail for her, I would help translate the mail. And so that's what I've been doing my whole entire life. And I've always been proud to be able to do that for my mother and my family, honestly. And I feel like that influenced me a lot. I've always wanted to be an advocate of some sort. I have always wanted to improve the lives of others in some way.
Thank you. And Virginia, same question. Any people, parents, friends, teachers who influenced your choice of college, majors, careers?
Sure. My mother's been an educator. She has taught at a local elementary school for, I want to say 20 years, but I can't 100% remember. And she was always, having me come in and help her in the classroom when, I was younger, and it really influenced me to want to be some sort of an educator or, helping people. And then I had another friend who helped me get into the school. He was teaching there, and he also had worked with me at the summer camp and said, there's openings in their daycare. I know you have your 2-year degree in early child education. You should come and work here. So it was really just friends and family who really just had opportunities they presented to me.
And Katrin, any mentors or influences in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I have 7 siblings, and the first 5 of us were born in 6 years. We were very close, and I'm the youngest of those 5, and they very much influenced almost everything that I did, and they were and are continued to be just very. My brother has worked in the medical field, and Whitney Young and my sisters have done their work and research in areas that are surrounding doing good, and that's the only way I can really generalize what all of them do. But I grew up with a pretty incredible family of change makers, of people that really were very very interested and invested in social change and direct work in doing that. And so I had some of the most incredible role models between both my parents as well as my number of siblings to really look for opportunities where I could affect change and I could impact change and I could be helpful in systems that needed support. So that is really it. I'm very lucky to have so many amazing mentors.
Great, thank you. And so I want to ask everyone to talk a little bit about whether it was apparent early in your college and career work that nonprofit work was an option. And I know for some of us, we've talked about that was kind of where we started. So maybe it was pretty obvious from the beginning that that's the direction you were going in. But when did nonprofits as kind of a career path become something that was on your radar? And we'll start with Carla.
So I would say that my interest started probably in high school, and then it grew when I went to my undergraduate studies, which was at Syracuse University. I have always known I wanted to do this kind of work, and in law school, that was my focus. My focus was doing non-for-profit work, legal work, and I think it's just in my heart, honestly.
Great, thank you. And we did have a question come in directly for you, Carla. And so I'll just use it as a follow-up now. So you spoke about how you work in our Department for People with Developmental Disabilities and advocate and assist for folks in that population. Do you know if there are any opportunities in that department or that you know of for folks with disabilities to be advocates for other people with disabilities?
Yes, so Erica also answered, we are an equal opportunity employer, and so we do have opportunities for people with disabilities to advocate for others with disabilities. If you're interested in looking at our employment page, we invite you to do that. Hopefully at the end, we can share our contact information, and perhaps that could be useful.
Absolutely, we'll definitely share our contact information, and I know personally, I won't necessarily speak on behalf of anyone else, but I'm happy to field questions and things like that. I know a lot of folks who work at Disability Rights New York identify as people with disabilities. And so we are that population, advocating for that population. And I think that's something that a lot of us are really proud of. So thank you, Carla. We'll ask Seamus the same question now about when did you realize that, you know, nonprofit work would be an option for you in your career path?
I think it was just when I volunteered at the Center for Disability Services. It really wasn't about nonprofit or a category. It was just getting to the classroom.
And Katrin, same question. When in your career path did you realize that nonprofit work might be an opportunity for you?
And so one of the things that I did in my career path is I started to work for an organization called One World Everybody Eats, and it's a nonprofit that supports cafes around the country that are you pay what you can. So it was a very I don't even want, it was not just interesting, it was amazing. I was able to travel around the country and visit different cafes and restaurants that had this ability to feed people that couldn't pay for their meal, but there was a way to bring community together that was something that I'd never seen before, something in food service, which is generally very, you know, high stress, and you know, you're looking at menu prices and places where you can get food for, you know, either very expensive to lower on the expense list. And this was a very new idea, and how it worked for each individual restaurant owner and community was interesting. So when I started to study this model extensively, I saw that nonprofits have a way of creating community that is so very different from the for-profit sector around, whether it's food service or any other industry, really, and that there's a level of commitment to community that I feel is threaded throughout not only the work that they do, but the people who work there. And that really showed me that was not only something that I thought I could do, but it's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to have that kind of system, whether it was for my own business when I started it, or to go work for someone else. And so the long way I got to even opening up my own cafe, the idea was I was going to start a one that was pay what you can. And it's interesting how that works in different states. But I ended up looking at a B corporation, and that ended up really having a lot of the same principles. And so when I moved out of that and was looking for my next job, and really I was just looking for my next job. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. I knew that I was going to go to a nonprofit. And I think I know that where I am now at Disability Rights New York, that feeling of community and that feeling of creating space in our community is definitely the thread that makes my job so rewarding to look at from the perspective of marketing and communications, and how do we communicate community, and how do we do that not just visually or orally, but how do we really want to make the impression of community in what we do. And I find the nonprofit part of what we do is really such a, it is foundational to what we do. So yeah, that's how I got there.
Great, thank you. And Virginia, if you want to talk a little bit about when you first kind of recognize nonprofits as being a career option.
Honestly, I never really looked at them as nonprofits. I was very similar kind of to Seamus. I just really liked the work I was doing. I really liked the people I was working with. And I really liked the people I was supporting. So I just really wanted to continue on that track. I never really took into account whether they were nonprofits or for-profit organizations.
Great, thank you. And so we've heard a little bit about everyone's background and kind of the different places that folks worked and educational opportunities. So at any point, did you change course along the way? You started going in one direction and then switched. And I'll start with Seamus here because I know that he mentioned special education and teaching, and he's in a different position now. So if you can talk a little bit about that course change and kind of how you went about that.
I think it was because with the coming of the Common Core, which was in the middle of our preparation at St. Rose for teaching, it really wasn't a creative and innovative. It turned out, in my opinion, to be less creative and innovative that I knew before going into St. Rose versus coming out. And I felt that because of the drive for testing, we didn't have the ability to really address issues that students came in with, which was, in a high needs community, food supply, the care that they receive outside of the classroom, the struggles they had outside of the classroom. They basically bring all that into the classroom, so you can't ignore it. However, in some of the schools I taught, the task for us was teach and that's it. And somebody mentioned, well, if you want to do the external issues, you have to either go into policy work or government. And I decided to go back to school for a master's in public administration and do policy or government work. Wasn't the easiest decision because I did love the classroom and I didn't want to sort of leave the students, but I felt that was what I needed to do. And then after my program, I found myself here at DRNY.
Thank you. And Carla, did you have any changes in course along the way, switching majors, testing out different jobs before you ended up here?
Yes, and before I applied for law school, I graduated from undergraduate and worked for 3 years. One of my first jobs was working at a high school, and I was a youth advocate. I had a caseload of about 30 students, and basically I would make sure that they were on their way to graduating. And so I would help them with whatever they needed help with. And I found that a lot of issues that they had, I really couldn't really help them with. And so I felt like my hands were tied. And at that point is when I decided I needed to go to law school in order to be able to tackle all these other issues that the children and the families were experiencing at the time. So I would say that around that time is when I did like a switch in my path.
Thank you. And Virginia, did you have any course changes along the way?
I did, because I started off very similar to Seamus in education. I got my 2-year degree in early childhood education, and I worked at the local school for several years. And I was going to continue on to go get my master's and bachelor's in education, but I felt more at home with the individuals with disabilities. So that's why I switched back over to work with the Arkansas County. And also, I had ended up starting my own family, and it was very difficult to juggle the full-time teaching and having, New Rensselaer County fit into my current lifestyle a little bit more than the education. And then it just kept going. I loved it.
Great. And Katrin?
Yeah, I've talked a little bit about how windy my road has been getting here, but it's not coming from a place of knowing that I was going to get into working with an organization that specifically was dealing with the disability community. I'm also, someone that just really believes that I would be guided to where it was that I wanted to be or was best for me. And when I said that when I interviewed for DRNY, I was looking at my next job. This really has changed from that idea to really my career, where I would love to really finish my work as this is. And I think when you find that sense of home in a surprising place, because when you go into communications or marketing, I don't ever remember hearing anything about any organization, nonprofit or otherwise, that you would be, that we were trying to get internships, and it was more or less, we're going to a PR firm or some kind of ad agency or something. So so I would, if there are students out there that are in communications or marketing programs right now, I would urge them to look at avenues and nonprofits, because it is always a windy road, however we get to where we are. But yeah, mine was very windy.
I think a lot of people can identify with that, and it's really nice to hear the different paths that everyone on our panel took today here, because there is no one size fits all that leads you to advocacy work or nonprofit work. And also the variety in the types of work that our panelists do here also shows that there's a lot of different ways to become involved with this type of work. And so we do want to switch gears a little bit and start talking, as opposed to how you got here, a little bit more about your experiences at Disability Rights New York and the work that you're doing here now. So the first question I want to ask about that is, can you talk a little bit about opportunities for teamwork and collaboration and working with others in your work here at DRNY? And we'll start with Virginia this time.
Absolutely. What's great about the intake department is essentially you get to work with all of the programs. Because we are the first line of contact for many of the clients, we get to coordinate with all of the different programs about what would be the best fit for supporting this client. Intake also gets invited to join several outreaches, because we do have the biggest knowledge base of exactly what everything DRNY does. So many programs ask us to assist because we can explain a lot more of the specifics that are going on with our agency. We also have lots of opportunities to be on different task forces because of the way we have so much interaction with the clients. So that's another great opportunity when you're in the intake department.
And Katrin, we'll jump back to you for opportunities for collaboration and teamwork in your work here at DRNY.
I was just thinking, as Virginia said that about intake, it's very similar with marketing. We're so lucky that we get to work with all of the programs, and we get to learn about what all the programs are doing. And then we get to not just report on what they're doing, but we also get to do as much as we can to promote, whether it's events that they're doing or the outreach events, putting together what it is that we are going to visually show up as when we're out and about at outreach events. So when I think about the scope of work that we do, and being able to work with not only all the programs individually, but also as the organization as a whole, we really have the ability to have so many different interests isn't the right word, but we have so many different streams of media that we're putting out. We get to do a podcast with everyone, and we have had, I think, almost everybody on the panel. No, Carla needs to do a podcast. I'm just going to say that out loud right now. And Jess, have you done one? Here's the other thing. I think maybe you did.
Been a while. It's been a while.
But so I've been here for 5 years, and when I started, we didn't have a podcast. We didn't really do a lot of social media, those kinds of things. So to see the evolution of the work that we've done has been incredible, and getting staff to be on the podcast, it is so much fun, and also I know that if everyone isn't interested in doing communications or speaking publicly or anything like that, so it requires a lot of trust from everyone in the organization to come on and know that we're going to have a great conversation, and it's going to be recorded. And yes, by the way, now we're on video. So all of these things, and yes, come and talk to us. So doing those, and we've put together great shorts. Grace and someone else who works in my department has put together some really great documentaries. So the scope of work that we do seems endless, and it seems like we have the opportunity to do everything, which is very different than some other organizations where really you're just doing one thing. You're just putting together maybe newsletters or some kind of reporting, where we are able to do so much with so many people and so many different programs, and inviting in collaborations from outside organizations that each of our departments or programs work with. We get to talk to everyone, and we get to talk to even all of the partners that everyone talks to. And so I will selfishly say that I love our department so much because we get to interact with literally everyone. And then everyone will tell us that, oh, you know what, you should meet with these people. We had a great meeting with these people. And so it is like nonstop networking, both within and outside of the organization. And so those are just some of the things that we do. And we have a lot of fun, which is really one of the best parts of my job.
And Carla, opportunities for teamwork and collaboration that you've seen in your time here at DRNY?
We collaborate a lot. There's a lot of teamwork here, and I actually like that about DRNY. It's refreshing that we get to do that. Like Katrin said, it's like networking within the organization. I get to know other people. We also get to learn about other issues, other areas of the law. And honestly, it kind of transfers or translates into the work we do, the fact that we are so committed and we like to work as a team, and we can get more done, honestly, as a team.
And Seamus, same question, opportunities for collaboration and teamwork that you've found here?
Yeah, I would say that at DRNY, you have your teams, such as I have amazing colleagues in PARP. And you not only have that though, but even though the teams have different names, they're very much all connected as one DRNY community. The work we do, which is protection and advocacy for individuals with disabilities, you need representative pay, analysts, as you need attorneys in, for protection and advocacy for developmental disabilities or individual rights, and mental illness, and all of the other programs we have, as well as you need marketing for spreading out what we do, and intake for sending us to people in need. So I think we all together, it's sort of like spindles on a wheel, almost like, if one of the axle breaks, the wheel doesn't go. So I feel that, we are all connected together, though we may have different acronyms on our team. We're all just together, working together. So you find collaboration, I think, everywhere. Even if it's just in the break room or at our events. DRNY usually has events for the whole staff. I mean, we're here for each other, and that makes us able to be here for the people we serve. So it's a pleasure with collaborating.
Thank you. And in talking about some of that, a couple people mentioned outreach and being a collaboration opportunity. One where we're collaborating with the other staff who might be doing outreach with us, but then also with the community. So could anyone of our panelists speak to an outreach event that you've been to? What community you were connecting with, what area of our advocacy you were talking about at that event? Sorry, Virginia.
I recently attended one at the New York State Empire State Plaza at the concourse, where we actually networked with several other nonprofits. Katrin, you can jump. I think it was Independent Living. Is that what that one was?
Yes, Independent Living, and yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. I just couldn't remember that. Anyway, we connected with a lot of other nonprofits, so we could really share back and forth about what we do and what they do. So it was a great resource to bring back to the office to share with what specific other nonprofits we're doing with and how we can collaborate with them on different projects. And I've also gone, I think, Seamus, we went to a local college and presented to a class about what DRNY does. It was a sociology class, and we gave a little bit of an overview about DRNY and how college students could utilize our services to assist them.
Great, thank you. And I know overall DRNY does a lot of great outreach work, and we're always presenting information to folks. So if anyone is looking for more information about any of the type of work we do, we're more than happy to share our knowledge and training. And if you're not already part of following our social media or our mailings, I'll do a little plug for Katrin's work. We put out a lot of great programming like this today that we're happy to share with the community. So that outreach work is a big part of what we do. And Katrin, I'm sure maybe you have a little more to add.
Yeah, I was going to say that, it's interesting is how outreach has been redefined, right? So pre-2020, we were going out to places, we were going to events. Outreach events were outside of the office, they were in person, and the whole world had to shift gears into virtual everything, which really opened up outreach in a very different way, in that we now have the ability to connect with people around the world, certainly across the country. And it also gave us the opportunity to connect with very specific groups, specifically around information that we really needed to get out when COVID had first started, and even after the first year, when there were just so many questions, and specifically questions that were they were specific to the disability community. So being able to have events that were either live or pre-recorded, so they were either a live Zoom event or putting together information through Zoom that ended up being recorded events. We did a couple of fantastic events in Rochester with the Spanish-speaking community. So we had the ability to go to the community virtually and ask questions. What questions did they have about COVID? What information were they looking for? And we were able to gather that information and then put it in and find experts then who could come and speak on that and provide outreach in a way that was direct to not only a community, but also to a specific issue, and have it widespread. So being able to record and then do post-production and have them up on YouTube so that they're widely available really became the way that outreach had been done until we were able to go back out in public. And I'm sure everyone who is in the audience right now and has experienced any kind of outreach, hybrid events are now the new thing, right? We're mostly virtual still, but also in person. And I believe that will be the way we'll see outreach from now on, because we now can not only access different communities, but we can access experts from anywhere in the world, where before we would be thinking about travel expenses or having someone come and stay, and how do we deal with the logistics? And now the logistics are they home and or they near a computer, and do they have a time slot available? So outreach has become a much different game, and I think it is fantastic to see how it has impacted the disability community specifically, because we now have the ability to have closed captioning and ASL in camera at every event. And again, someone who is maybe in another state, in a different time zone, we can still reach them. And it's a really refreshing way to see how outreach is working, because the end goal of it is impact. And I think that has changed exponentially.
Great, thank you. So I also want to ask, what is something that our panelists have learned along the way in doing disability advocacy work? And that can be something here at DRNY, or I know a couple of folks have mentioned that they have other disability advocacy experience outside of DRNY. So just something that working in the disability advocacy field, something that you've learned. And we'll start with Carla.
I would say that the importance of collaboration, which we have talked about, is so important. Like you really can do a lot more together. And a lot of times, especially as attorneys, we like to work alone and kind of like focus or narrow what we're doing. But after coming here and being here for 8 months, I have like a different appreciation for teamwork and collaboration. It is so important with the work we do.
Thank you. And Seamus, what's something that you've learned in doing disability advocacy work?
Well, I think the importance of having, compassion in what you do. It's not just about doing a job and making money and, meeting the goal and the number of cases. It's really being there for the individuals, whether you can help them directly or not. And also compassion for those who you work with as well. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere without my colleagues in PARC, because Rep AE was totally new to me and they helped me see what to do. And also working with whether it be an attorney or marketing or intake, we're all here for the same purpose. And even the interns who come to us, I see interns just the same way that I see, any colleague of mine that works full time. Everyone brings something to the table that's valuable. And I try to reach out to all my colleagues and make sure that, we all know that all of us are appreciated and we appreciate each other because we're all here for the same goal. Because if we feel that way within our organization, we can spread that feeling to the people we serve. So I think just compassion in general, I think.
Thank you. And Virginia, what have you learned in doing disability advocacy work?
Really empowering individuals to be their own self-advocates, really equipping people with the tools so that they can handle their own situations, really providing people with the resources and the connections to advocate on their behalf to solve their issues. There's a lot of times when a client will call with an issue and all I have to do is just provide them with the phone number and say, you can do this, here's what you need to do. And they'll call me back and say, thank you so much. I've been stressing out about this for so long, and that 5-minute conversation really helped me take care of this and then, gave them the skills to do what they need to do. It's just something I really love. I love getting those calls when people call me back and they're like, thank you so much. I've been, worrying about this for months, and you took the 2 minutes to explain to me about how I can solve my problem on my own. Because sometimes the system is very difficult to navigate, so giving people the tools is really important.
Absolutely. And Katrin, what's something that you've learned in doing disability advocacy work?
What I've learned is that I will always be learning, and I find that to be one of the best things about my job. Knowing that there's an infinite number of things that I haven't learned yet about disability advocacy, and that it is an ever evolving area of work. And when I think about language and how organic language is in general, and how language impacts not just community but the world as a whole, and how are we talking about things. So from the point, or from the starting point of communications, how are we using our words when we're bringing advocacy issues public? And what are we seeing in how people are using words? And what can we do to educate? Really, it's the number of things that I know that I have learned and have been introduced to in the last 5 years is overwhelming, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that this is an area that I will never stop learning in, because it will never stop changing. And the more that we can do from a communication standpoint to help spread that word and help the impact of change, that to me is why I would say I feel like this is my home now. This is what I want to do. It's so important especially when it comes to words. That's my thing. How we're saying things is crucial. So to know that that is always going to be a point of education for the general population, that's important.
Thank you. And so how would each of you say that your values and experiences align with the work that you're doing here today at DRNY? And we'll start with Virginia.
Sorry. How my experiences in life align with my work here at DRNY. That is a tough one. I had to think about it for a second. I think just the way I was brought up, my mom and dad were very involved in our local community. They were very involved in church. They were very involved with, the school and things like that. And they loved giving back, and they taught me all about it as a young age. So I think that transferred over to here at DRNY because I really enjoy helping people, and I want that to be something I can instill in my own children. So I like it when they can see how what I'm doing every day is changing lives, and I hope that's something that they carry with them forward.
And Seamus, how would you say that your values or experiences align with the work that you're doing now?
I think the fact that everyone belongs. And I feel that each one of us at times, we probably felt, we didn't feel like people saw us as belonging to where we were. And I feel that, the value of wanting people to feel belonged and to feel a part of a community. We serve individuals who for years and years and years have been treated as if they never belonged. They were put in institutions or out of the public eye. And, even sometimes when I'm out with my sisters, some people sort of stare as if, it's something new they're seeing. But everyone, no matter what the disability or socioeconomic status or race or ethnicity, everyone belongs. And I think that having that value and really believing that and being able to put it in the work we do every day, I think, it's a value that definitely matches this field, because that's what we're striving for. And, for those who feel that you don't have a big role, whether it be like you're interning with a state office or an organization, or if you're just one employee in a pool of dozens, you matter. And, you bring something to the table that's appreciated. So, and if you feel unappreciated, just know that there are people out there who do. So.
Thank you. And Carla, your values and experiences and how they align with the work that you're doing here at DRNY.
So inclusion is very important to me. To me, it doesn't just mean inviting someone to the table. It's actually listening to them, enhancing their voice, not talking for them or making decisions for individuals. I have always had a passion to advocate for those that are marginalized or underserved groups. And so I try to enhance their voices and not necessarily make decisions or speak for them. So inclusion is very, very important for me.
Thank you. And last, this is kind of a broad question, but if you had one piece of advice that you could give to the students who are attending our panel today, and that could be a piece of advice on advocacy, on education, on choosing your career path, anything that you think would be valuable to share with the folks who came to listen to the panel today. And we'll start with Katrin.
It's so interesting. I'm just having my youngest son is graduating from college in December. So I've had three boys that have gone through school, and with each of them, my advice was the same, that happiness is key. Find something that you're happy about or you're passionate about. And just listening to my co-panelists, there is something in all of us that there is joy in what we do, and that makes our jobs, our careers, not just worthwhile for us, but for the greater community, that no matter where you are. And I've also reminded them that So whatever decision that they made, whether it was which college do they want to go to or what job do they want to take right out of school, is that there is always an opportunity to change, whether it's changing your mind about something in the day, in a moment, in an instance, or deciding that you want to try something new and go outside of your comfort zone. That's something that has always interested you. My advice is always to really trust that where your interest and your passions lie, so will happiness. And that can change. What might make you happy for a couple of years may not, and you may find something else. And to keep moving, that, you know, our paths in life are long, and we get to decide where we're going to go, where we're going to travel on them. And when you find your space and you feel like you found your space, to trust it. And that there's no right answer. There's no right answer for what you're going to do next. And that you always get an opportunity to make a different decision. So that's my advice.
Very good advice. And Seamus, what advice would you have to share today?
I think the two most important things is, one, if you in your mind right now, you have an idea of a position that you want to be in, and or you look up to someone, or you look up to something that you feel, I wish I was that way, I wish could be that, or I hope one day to be that. Don't say I wish, say I will, because you have just as much the ability as that person who has won whatever position you wanted. You just have to believe yourself and really get out there and say, you know, I belong and I can do whatever I want to do. People mentioned to me when I was leaving teaching, that was one of the biggest mistakes I would make. There were times where it was uncertain. I was a stranger to public administration. I was not good with numbers, and we had to take budgeting, and we had to do economics and all of these items. But, you know, you get through it, because if you really want to attain something that you know will make you, you know, happy and is a purpose you feel most passionately about, you're going to get there. And also, instead of thinking of this whole job search as like a competition or a race to the top, it's okay to spread love and positivity when you're doing the work you do. And when you get to a position that you're in, always send down the elevator to someone, even if you had to climb stairs, because making everybody climb all of the stairs that you had to climb, you know, it's better to be the person to help others who are looking to get to where they want to be, and, you know, just give back to each other. And, you know, whether it be, if some people on the call are students in universities or they're interns in an office, you know, build that connection and, you know, help each other. And if someone came to me, it doesn't matter what their, you know, goal is after, especially the interns at DRNY, or where they came from. It's, I want to help you get to where you want to be. Because I at first was in a position I thought I wanted to be in, but it turned out I didn't really belong. But I found somewhere where I love to be. And when you get there, it's an amazing feeling. So try to do that for everybody. You know, it's good to be kind. And, you know, if we spread, you know, love and acceptance over just selfishness, I think we will all be in a better position. You know, that's my advice.
Thank you. And Carla, a piece of advice?
My advice would be to network, to get as much exposure as you can. You have things that interest you, so go out there and try to find people that are doing things that you are interested in or are doing. Also get mentors, not just one mentor, get a couple. I think that is super, super helpful for people in figuring out what it is they ultimately want to do. And you may have to go through jobs that you really feel like this is not for me, and that's okay, because it's going to lead you to what you should be doing ultimately. So don't be scared of failure, and just go out there and talk to other people. We need to be active participants in our journey into what we want to do. We can't wait for people to come to us or to contact us. Literally, we have to go out there and meet people.
Excellent. And Virginia?
Be kind to yourself and be patient to yourself. It's a really long road to figure out what you want to do. I'm 42 and I love DRNY, but I still have a whole other life that ahead of me that I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet. You know, being kind and being patient, and then asking for help when you need it. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that's showing you're stronger and that you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Being kind to yourself is just as important as being kind to everyone else, because nowadays it seems like we can be very hard and harsh on ourselves and driven to, you know, be something, and taking that time out to really reflect on yourself and what you want to do is very important.
Great. Thank you so much to all the panel for fielding the questions that I had. And so now a little earlier than we had scheduled, we're going to jump into kind of a Q&A session. So our behind the scenes folks have been gathering some questions from the chat throughout here. So I'll pose them to the panel now. And it's okay if no one has an answer, we can always try to find an answer for someone. We are a large organization and it's only 4 of us here on the panel, so we can't guarantee that the right person to answer your question is here with us now, but we will certainly try. And so the first question that came in was if anyone could speak to job opportunities for helping people with disabilities or working with people with disabilities, specifically within the Department of Education. And I know, Seamus, you talked a bit about education, but I don't know if you have any insight into the DOE that you could share.
I think there, from what I know, it's whether even if you're in public administration, it doesn't have to be an education degree. You could be in public administration, you could be, you know, you can be education. But I think there may be some exams from the state. I know the state of New York, for example, has like some of those tests that take, I guess, for the human, because of public service, you know, they have to have those stuff. But it's very generic, straightforward questions I've heard. I haven't taken them because I didn't pursue Department of Ed. However, I think it's open to numerous backgrounds. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for being a cooperating professional, or being the word is escaping me, you know, sort of counseling teachers on how to build curriculums, probably be more of the education side of it. If you're looking for like policy or finance or budgeting, it'll probably be like the public administration or business side of it. There's numerous opportunities. If you go on, I think the site is, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows, but I think it's and New York State Jobs.gov, I think it is. There's like a database for New York State jobs. If you type in NYS jobs in Google, it will come up, but they usually have stuff there.
Great, thank you, Seamus. Does anyone else have any insight to the Department of Education or opportunities there? Okay. The next question was if there is a way to keep in touch with the folks on our panel today, if people have follow-up questions. You guys have shared a lot of really interesting backgrounds and experiences. I will say that DRNY's general contact information is available on our website, and we can also, perhaps, Jeremy, if you could throw our contact information into the chat for people. You can reach out to just our general contact with the name of the individual that you want to get connected with, and then our excellent office administrative staff can connect you with that person, or someone, like I said, if there's another type of question you have, there might be a great person here at DRNY we can connect you with to answer it. And the next question is about DRNY's reports. So we do have several reports that we have published on our website and other places as well, and marketed from our wonderful marketing department. And so this person first asked if the statistics in our reports are done by our own researchers or working with other organizations or individuals. And is there anyone on the panel today who has worked on or authored one of DRNY's reports?
So only to the extent of the publishing and the marketing of the reports that I worked on them. But I would say, depending on the report, the statistics that come in are generally a collaboration from whatever organization we are working with to put the report together. So I think it would be specific on which report they're asking about. All of the reports have authors on them, so certainly they could reach out specifically to the people that did author them and the organizations that we collaborated with.
Thank you. And I'll switch hat from moderator to semi-panelist for a moment. I have authored a DRNY investigative report. So just for a little bit of, I guess, context with DRNY's work, we are, I think, first and foremost, an advocacy and law office, and we provide individual services to people. But another really important part of the work that we do and our mandate through being the protection and advocacy agency for New York State is that we conduct investigations and we do monitoring of facilities that house people with disabilities. So places where people are incarcerated, prisons or jails, schools, skilled nursing facilities, other types of medical facilities. We have an authority to go into those places and investigate the conditions that people with disabilities are being kept in the services that they're receiving. So like Katrin mentioned, a lot of our reports will say within them where we got that information from, whether it's information that we gathered ourselves as attorneys and advocates going physically into those places, looking around, speaking to individuals, or if we worked with outside groups, or if we pulled that information from somewhere else, then it should be cited in the report in a footnote or in the text itself to say where we got that information from. And then there was a follow-up about research and any current topics that DRNY is currently researching or looking into. Is there anyone on the panel who's currently working on a report and is allowed to share what the topic of that report might be? And that's okay too. Like I said, we have kind of a smaller sampling here today. I can say generally, if you take a look at our reports, skilled nursing facilities and prisons are always facilities that we're looking at for instances of abuse and neglect of people with disabilities. And you can also take a look at our litigation, which you can find information about our systemic litigation in press releases and things like that to describe that. And that's a lot of the work that we're doing on a really systemic level, is that we've done research to kind of see what issues we're finding out in New York State facing the population that we serve. And then we are, in some instances, taking that and litigating those issues. So certainly, like Katrin mentioned, if anyone has more specific questions about a report, feel free to reach out, and our office staff can connect you with the author or the team that worked on that report directly. And let me see. So yes, our contact information, as well as some information about civil service exams, which is what Seamus was talking about, has been shared in the chat for folks. And I also wanted to note that anyone who's registered for this event today will receive an email with a link to the recording once it's ready. So you can just expect that. Give our media team a little bit of time to get the captioning and the interpreting together, but that will go out to everybody who registered here today. And so kind of on the topic of collaboration, someone has asked if we work with any other nonprofits in other states, and this person specifically is from North Carolina. So can anyone on our panel speak to working with organizations in other states or other nonprofits?
I would say that
It does in a very limited, sorry, Katrin, very limited fashion. We do sometimes refer people to other disability rights and organizations in their states that they are living in, and they're calling our agency for help. And we do provide the contact, and sometimes we'll set up the call and get the initial contact done for them. But that in the intake, that's about as far as we will go. Go ahead, Catherine.
I would say similarly limited, although what we do, and we don't work with necessarily other organizations in the marketing department, but we've done interviews with people in other states on disability issues. So if we have someone that reaches out to us, or someone sends us something that's interesting and just so happens to be from another state, we definitely look into it and see, is this something that we would want to do a podcast on, or find more information about. So although our work is specific to New York State, when we hear about being able to collaborate with someone else in another area, we definitely do. It's just so there's so much information out there. We welcome it. We welcome being able to collaborate with people from other states.
Absolutely. And as Erica mentioned in the chat, Disability Rights New York is part of a federally funded network of organizations, and there's one of us in each state. So you'll find Disability Rights Pennsylvania, Disability Rights New Jersey, Disability Rights California, and we're always in touch with our sister organizations about the work that they're doing, and also other nonprofits on the work that they're doing. Sometimes we'll co-counsel with them. Like I said, if you take a look at our litigation, you might find on the signature page that it's signed by Disability Rights New York, as well as another nonprofit that are representing our plaintiffs. And if you take a look at our reports, you'll see that we've worked with other nonprofit organizations as well to work on those reports. We do have certain limitations in the people that we can directly serve because we're the organization for New York State, but we're always open to collaboration and like to hear about the work that folks are doing in other states, because sometimes other states have really great ideas and we think, wow, we'd love to bring that work to New York. So are there any other questions? Feel free to throw them in the chat. All right, well, I'm not seeing any further questions come in right now. Someone please jump in and let me know if I've missed one accidentally. But otherwise, thank you so much to everyone who attended today. And thank you especially to our panelists who took the time this afternoon and in preparation for this event to share your experiences and your knowledge with everyone today. It's been extremely interesting and valuable, and we can't thank you enough for your time. Again, our contact information was in the chat for anyone who would like to reach out to Disability Rights New York with any follow-ups. And thank you, everyone, and we'll give you a little bit of your afternoon back here. I hope everyone has a great weekend.